Welcome to a new episode of Outside the Panels with your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Outside the Panels. I'm your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes, and it's dawned on me recently that every time I talk about new projects, I mention the K word. That's right, I mention Kickstarter. Now, in case anyone's wondering, Kickstarter are not sending me any cheddar cheese. So in that case, let's go the other way. Let's talk about Indiegogo, and I've got a creator for you in the fantastic Jason Sandberg. Jason, how's it
Good
going,
afternoon.
sir?
It's doing great. I want to thank you for scheduling this on a Friday. It allowed me to get out of work early, so I greatly appreciate that.
You are more than welcome. Anything I can do to stick it to the man so you can get out of work early, all good for me. How's things going with you? How's your project going?
It's going really good, actually. So I'm a new creator, and I did a black and white version of Jupiter back in the '90s, but for the current time period, I am a new creator. So it's going very well. We're already at $3,500 on an original goal of $500. So we're doing really well, and we've got about 8 days left of the campaign. It's going really well, and every day I'm getting incremental people signing up and backing the project. Cool. And you mentioned Kickstarter earlier, and for the people out there that are wondering, the reason why I went with Indiegogo is that at the end of the campaign, Indiegogo has this feature called In Demand. So you're during the campaign, you're doing everything you can to get people to go to Indiegogo. At the end of the campaign, the project goes in demand. So it's like an evergreen. It's always there available for additional sales, which is different than Kickstarter. So at the end of it, obviously, I'll take the overprint and I'll go to Diamond, I'll go to Lunar, I'll go to my eBay site and so forth. But that Indiegogo page will stay there, and the book will still be available after the end of the campaign.
That sounds like such a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, because once your project's done on Kickstarter, that's it. You're one and done. And then you're stuck with all the surplus or and everything from that point of view. And then people want to buy the book. It's where do I get the book from? And you're like, oh, sorry, you're gonna have to wait till the next one. This is very, very reader friendly. I like this. I like this a lot.
And oftentimes I'll, like on Twitter, I'll have someone comment on something I posted like 6 months ago or 9 months ago, and it just has to do with the algorithm and how people are using Twitter. So it'd be a tragedy if someone comes across my campaign post 5 months from now, and then they go there and it's Kickstarter and it's shut. They can't do anything. So at this point, they'll be able to still find the book after the end of the campaign.
Perfect.
Since we're kind of starting out here, I want to show people the
book. Go for it.
So this is Jupiter. This is 40 pages full color. This is on the Indiegogo campaign. It's funding right now. It's 40 pages full color. I want to point out something kind of special. The book is 95% done, and I'm just basically doing some final adjustments to the artwork and so forth. So unlike a lot of crowdfunding campaigns, if you back Jupiter, I'm going to send it off to the printer at the end of the campaign. You will get these before 4th of July. I guarantee it. The other thing that's unique about Jupiter is that while it is a comic book, the basic tier is $10. At that $10 tier, you also get a non-prize. Not to be confused with a no prize. This is a non-prize. All right. Now, Johnny, I would never lie. I would never lie to people, especially your audience. I'd never lie. There's freaking nothing in there. There's nothing in there. So bag Jupiter and get the non-prize, and you can tell that I'm deeply inspired by, and I got a love for Jack Kirby.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
on the back of the non-prize, you have a supervillain who's telling you that you may have won the non-prize, but he's going to win in the end, because the best supervillains talk trash. So during this episode, we'll talk more about the book, but I encourage you to go to Indiegogo and back at the $10 level, because you're going to get a wonderful 40-page full color comic book, which I've lavished all of my craft and love for comics into this book. It's a great book in my opinion, and you're going to get this non-prize, and a no prize for Marvel. It's cool, but this is a non-prize. It's indie, much cooler.
I have to say, it's a really good gag, because I wear non-verse, which are like Converse, but not.
Okay. Nice.
So I think the SoCal I think there's the brand, but they look like Converse. So that's the gag for me. It's like, yeah, look at me, I'm wearing my Nonverse, So
I when I was growing up, I had the guys that would spend all the money in the Converse, and then they paint them and mark them up, and it's like, well, what are you doing? What are you doing?
What are you doing? Somebody at work came in with some mock Dartons, which are like Doc Martens but fake.
That I'd never come across.
That's
pretty wild. That's pretty
cool.
wild.
That's cool. All right, excellent. So we had a quick glimpse at the comic book. We have what's it about? Tell me the story before we start looking at the videos. Give me the whole shebang.
So Jupiter takes place on a world with no superheroes. It's a normal world like our world. And one of the things that one of the issues I have with Marvel and DC is that they're overcrowded with superheroes. It's like bring your superhero to work day, right? They're everywhere and they're too similar. And the other thing is that classic heroes in comic books, like say Superman. He was a superhero, but then around him were regular people, Lois, Jimmy, and Perry White and stuff, and they would look up to him and they'd be in awe of him. And as they were a surrogate for the reader, where they could be taken aback and amazed. And nowadays, like I love Captain America and so forth, but I pick up the Avengers and I pick up the X-Men, and it's wall-to-wall superheroes. They're not special.
Yeah.
So in the world of Jupiter, it's a world like ours where the only superheroes exist as comic books within Jupiter. So that's that Captain Kleinbottle character there. So on the topic of variant covers, if you buy Jupiter, you get a variant cover, but you only have to buy the book the one time. So in this normal world where I draw in a kind of a modern, very detailed art style with a very full color palette, that's the normal world. In this normal world, this main character, her name's Brenda, she is unhappy. She wants to escape. She wants to run away from home, not out of abuse or neglect by her parents, but just that her family's experienced a family tragedy. Yeah. I do not tell you what that family tragedy is in this issue of Jupiter. However, there's clues, and I try to be respectful of my reader and treat my reader as intelligent. If you read this carefully, you're going to figure out what happened to this. You're going to get a very good clue of what happened to this family. You'll be taken aback. It's going to hit you like a gut punch. But the point is that they've gone to a cabin to get away and kind of reset. They've gone to a family cabin. And during that vacation, a revolution occurs in a neighboring dimension. A hole in reality rips open, and the consequences of that revolution spill into their world. So suddenly fantasy and the miraculous and the bizarre invade their world. As a consequence, she suddenly has the ability to go anywhere, right? She can open up portals in space and time, and she can run away from home. She could never have to go back and do homework again. She could never have to grow up and do a day job, right? Exactly. So suddenly it becomes a dynamic struggle between fight or flight. Does she flee? Does she run away from her problems? Does she run away from her sadness? Or does she stay and fight? Because as a consequence of what happens here, other people begin to come over as a result of those events, superpower being and so forth. And she has to say, first, I need to defend myself. And what's how can I rightly and justly defend myself? And then suddenly she realizes I need to defend my family, and then my hometown, and then my world. So this is that heroic journey. It's not like, say, Green Lantern, where a ring comes down, lands on her fingers, suddenly she's off to the races. She's going to become a hero by making a series of choices. And there's going to be twists and turns, and the stakes are going to rise. During her heroic journey, I guarantee you, there's going to be moments where you're rooting for her. There's going to be other moments where you're like aggravated. She's not doing the cliche things she's supposed to do. She's struggling because she has to find her way. And that's the core of this story here. So this first issue is the ground floor, the beginning of that heroic journey. At the end of this journey, she is going to become the greatest superhero in this world, and the only superhero in this world, but she's going to become a full-fledged superhero. And then she's going to be, everybody around her is going to be in awe of her. It's going to be an amazing thing. And the threats will keep coming, but she's going to be a hero, and she's going to stand up to those threats.
Cool. Excellent. Wow, that's a lot going on for sure. I like the idea of the comic within the comic.
Yeah.
I think I saw this way back in the 70s when Barry Allen would pick up a Golden Age Flash comic. It's the same sort of the thing, isn't it? It's the same sort of idea.
Yep. And Alan Moore did in Watchmen with the Tales of the Black Freighter. But I will mention here, if I show you some pages here, you can see that the art style Predominantly the art style was very modern, very full color palette, a lot of detail. But when my characters read the comic books within the comic book, I draw in the style of Jack Kirby. And then I use basically the 64 color palette that Marvel had during the Bronze Age. And then I do a lot of tricks with paper filters and so forth, so that when it goes from the real world into the comic book world, you get that feel, that tension with the tactile change between the paper and the normal coloring. Cool.
I've got to say, off the bat, Jack Kirby thing hit me straight away.
Good.
Yeah. So that was cool. So you're a huge Jack Kirby fan?
Absolutely. The first comic book I ever bought with my own money was Captain America 214 in 1977, and that sparked my love of comic books in general, because it was like a magic trick. I was looking at it, and I had seen Spider-Man or Batman on the cartoon, so I knew about superheroes. But when I read that Jack Kirby comic book, it was like a magic trick. How is this two-dimensional drawing popping off the page at me? How are these static pictures portraying energy and motion and dynamism? And I was enthralled, right? And I began to do my own comic books at the dinner table with a pencil and paper and so forth. And they were terrible, believe me, they were terrible. But that sparked my love of the medium in that journey.
Cool. Right. Before we get too enthralled in Jupiter and Brenda in a story, let's have a look at a couple of the videos that we've got going on. So we're going to have a pop at your Indiegogo page. Give me 2 seconds and we'll add that to the stream. There it goes. Let's make this large so we can see it.
And all the artwork is from the book. It's actually my drawings, but I took them into Adobe Animate on different layers and kind of moved them around and so forth.
Sweet. Excellent. So let's have a go and let's have a see what comes up next. So that first sequence there, that's kind of like the intro, right? So we're seeing Brenda in the forest, like on the family vacation you were mentioning.
Yep.
Dinosaurs?
Yeah.
Dinosaurs? I didn't see that in the preview press. Where's
right.
That from?
So that scene with kind of the blue line work and the psychedelic coloring, that's the neighboring dimension where the revolution's happening. And they don't have tanks, so they take a dinosaur and they crash through a castle. So there's several pages where I got to draw. I tried to channel John Buscema, and I wanted the line work to feel like a 1970s John Buscema Conan. But then I didn't want it to be dark. I didn't want to do like sepia tone. I didn't want to do the traditional things. I wanted to make it otherworldly and psychedelic. So I really just went bizarre with the color palette and some of the effects in Adobe Fresco. Cool. Had a good time doing it. So that's that other dimension where it's going to basically break into their world.
Cool, excellent.
And if you want to hit pause just for a moment.
Yep.
So there were quotes in there in the initial part of the
Scott McCloud one's very impressive. Well,
yeah.
I mean, he is absolutely a comic book legend. Legend.
Absolutely. I have off to my side, I've got all the Zots in floppy, and on my bookshelf here, I've got the color and the black and white Zot in hardcover. And yeah, so I mentioned that my first comic book was Jack Kirby's Captain America 214. Jump ahead to 1983. The first indie comic I ever bought was Nexus #2 by Mike Baron and Steve Root. That was a critical moment for me, because suddenly I was like, these indie comics have more intelligent writing, more beautiful artwork, better coloring, better paper than the corporate comics. And I began to bifurcate, where I still maintain my love of Cap and the Avengers and so forth, and so on. But I also began to dip into the indie stuff. So I read Dreadstar, I read ElfQuest, I read Zot, I read Cerebus, all those great indie comics from the 80s. And I maintained a special attachment to Scott McCloud. In the 90s, when I was self-publishing Jupiter as a black and white indie in the late 90s, I would send samples out to creators that I admired, like Rick Veitch and Dave Sim and Scott McCloud. And a few times they would send back postcards, keep up, keep chipping away. You're getting better, that type of stuff. Yeah. Keep going uphill. And when Scott McCloud was writing his second nonfiction book, which was Reinventing Comics, he sent me a postcard. And this was maybe the first or second issue of Jupiter had come out. He sent me a postcard. He said, Jason, I want you to know that I actually cite Jupiter in my next book, my forthcoming book, Reinventing Comics. I hope you're okay with that. And I wrote back, absolutely, I'm thrilled. That is fantastic. So then lo and behold, the book gets published. And I go to the index and I look for my name and I flip to the page. And as he's describing the different kinds of comic books that are out there, like different genres, romance, war comics, superheroes, he put me next to Kyle Baker and Jim Woodring. And he said, these are artists and characters, or artists and comics that are uncategorizable. And I was knocked out. I was like, oh my God. I was like, I couldn't believe it. And I told my wife, I said, I don't know what's going to happen with this comic book, but if my career ends now, it can't get any better. It can't get any better. It can't get any better. So so that was like a pretty big high moment for me. I was very honored, very flattered, very excited. And some of what he was talking about was indicative of what you saw in the trailer, where I'll switch my art style based upon the needs of the story. So when you look at Jupiter, the main part of this, it's 40 pages. Most of it is this realist story with references to, say, Jack Kirby, but there's other short stories in the back, some 4-page stories, some 3-page stories, some 1-page stories. Some of the 1-page stories, the approach I take with them is imagine if I could go back in time and I hang out in a coffee shop with Robert Crumb and Robert Williams, and they're like, hey kid, we'll let you have 1 page in Zap Comics. What do you want to do? And so I set myself that challenge. What would I do if I could have been in Zap Comics, right? So I'll do these
cupcake adverts. That's what you want to do.
Yeah, I do. Well, I'll do these crazy little 1-page surrealist cubist comic books, right? But the point is that I think that's why he described my work as uncategorizable, because I'm not in a box. I'm going to do what I want to do for the love of the medium, right? And in this issue of Jupiter, there is a 4-page, basically a horror story, right? And I'll show you the first 2 pages of it. And I don't want to spoil anything here, but basically, I don't have an editor. So if I want to do a 4-page horror story about a young boy who hears something outside of his window and goes to his window and he sees a dinosaur or a dragon tail, and he decides, I'm going to go figure out what the heck that is. And he goes into the streets, and he's looking, and he's out of the corner of his eye and around corners, he's seeing glimpses of huge monsters, but he keeps pressing on to figure out what it is, right? I can do that. I don't have an editor telling me you can't do a 4-page story with a character that looks like it's from Peter Pan in a film noir depiction of New Orleans. Well, why not?
Yeah,
why can't I do that?
It's your book. Do what you want.
Exactly.
I have to say that as I was reading Watchmen the first time around, I got more into the pirate story than I did the main story. I was like, I don't care where, Rorschach's going to win. Yeah, what's happening with the pirates? So
I think everybody. It's like the 4th time they read Watchmen, they begin to read the back matter about like the history of the Minutemen and stuff like that. I think everybody is like, I want more Dr. Manhattan. I want more Rorschach. I'm gonna skip over that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I've seen all that stuff before. What's this about? Yeah, that's exactly it. All right, let's carry on with the video. Okay. Let's see what else we've got. What are the surprises? I see what you mean about the color palette there.
Oh yeah,
very, very, very old school. some Flash Gordon inspiration there. It looks like.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Cool.
Yep. Everything's in my DNA, and it all just kind of seeps out.
Whoa, it's a prisoner.
Yeah.
I am not a number. I am a free man.
So this one here is this is basically a one-page strip in the comic book that I animated. And with this one, it is when I was a youngster, I loved the Twilight. I still love the Twilight Zone, but I really love the Twilight Zone. The intro of the Twilight Zone, where they were basically trying to do the surrealism on TV with the floating windows and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then I wanted to do something that felt like that, plus paintings by De Chirico or Salvador Dali, right? With the Spanish town, the Spanish plaza at midday with things floating and moving around. So that's kind of the genesis of this little clip. This does turn into a six panel, one page thing in the comic book. But this was me kind of just having fun, right? I'm going to do a surrealist little vignette, little clip with stuff floating around. So please enjoy.
Excellent. It looks great. I like that one.
All right, that was fun.
I like the house in the Hourglass. That was clever. I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's a one page strip in the book. And when I drew it, I knew I was going to want to animate it, so I made sure everything lined up. And then my cousin actually had helped me do that in Adobe After Effects. And a funny story is he works in marketing and he does animation and video and stuff like that. So, cool. And I'm like, I'm going to need your help with this one. This one's a little tricky. I need your help. So he comes over and he's like, dude, you can't do this in Adobe Animate. You got to use After Effects. I'm like, okay, all right, you do it. I'll sit back here. So we had burgers and a beer and stuff like that. And we're doing it. And so we've got the 6 panels, right, where it's basically zooming out, right? And he reached this point where he goes, okay, which one's first? And I go, well, do it where the house is the largest. Do that first. And he goes, okay, but before you get to the house, you got to do the zoom in, right? And there was this moment where you could see the 2 hemispheres of his brain begin to like spin around like that. And all we had was a beer, but we were so high and we were so like freaking. We were sitting there laughing at each other, and I'm like, dude, this isn't that hard. He's like, no, hold on. Let's back up. Let's go all the way back to where you see the hourglass. I said, okay, let's do that. And he goes, okay, now what's behind that? And I'm like, dude, we were there before with the house. So we just had it was one of those moments with my cousin, just laughing it up, and the look on his face where he's looking at me like, dude, I knew you were crazy, but this proves it.
There must be something special in the special sauce. That's all I'm saying. All right. Let's see what's next.
Wiener. Wiener.
So that one was fun to do, and that one was my the part of me that's the consumer advocate.
Yeah,
Did that one where I'm like, listen, Marvel, DC, stop killing characters, stop rebooting, stop doing line-wide crossovers that don't mean anything, all this kind of stuff. So I said, okay, I'm gonna do a guerrilla marketing thing where people are gonna think it's a video game and they're shooting bad comics to save money. But then at the end, my comic book comes down like, oh, I got to catch that one, right? So that was a lot of fun to do. And I ran that for a couple of weeks. I ran that on Twitter, and it was so funny. Some of the comments were like, wait, is this a video game? And so I'm sure people were scrolling through and they thought it was like Candy Crush, and then they stopped and watched it, and it's some comic book. So I had some good laughs out of that, but it was fun to do.
I like that one. I like the retro fan in me likes that a lot. So
very good. Good to hear.
Cool.
Good to hear.
Cool. Right, we'll take a quick break before we talk more about the book and yourself, of course. What have I got? You know what? I haven't heard this one for a while. You never know. This book takes off. Get McFarlane on the phone. Get yourself some McFarlane figures. You could be on Crisis in the Toyverse. There's hey, look at that. Luke, is that Anakin or is it Luke?
It's Luke. He's got the robot hand and all that kind of stuff. So I've got a 6-year-old son. So and he's like Legos and stuff like that. So he's not at all interested in this. So I have this in my studio here. My son was into trains and Legos. He never really got into like say Star Wars figures. So I bought this a couple of years back just so I would have one because I lost all mine. My mom threw all mine away.
Yeah, me too.
This is my only toy. The only thing I collect is I will collect. I've got I'm a very niche collector. Besides comic books, you can see I collect plenty of comic books. But the one thing that I will collect is if it's a metal Captain America lunchbox, I'll buy it. And that prevents me from getting out of hand, right? Because it's a very small niche. So behind me here, I've got like 7 or 8 Captain America lunch boxes. But in terms of toys, I do have a Luke Skywalker.
Is that a Power of Force figure as well? I imagine from I don't know. Could be. But I tell you, Bobo will be able. He'd be looking at that. He'd be like, he tells the printer on it and everything. He's amazing, Bobo. All right, excellent. So, looking at the comic, there's lots of. You talk about John Buscema. You talk about Jack Kirby. I'm not going to lie to you. I think there's a little bit of Steranko in there.
Could be.
I think there's a little bit of that kind of Gerber-esque kind of madcap Doctor Strange element back when Strange was, actually Strange, and not the Marvel mastermind that he is now. Would you say that your formative years were spent with Marvel Comics?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. Definitely. I think when I started reading 1977, you had to go, when I first started reading, there weren't comic book shops or I couldn't get to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I was reliant on World's Greatest Comics, Marvel Tales for all the reprints and things like that. And then there were a few paperback reprints, and I got my hands on a Captain America reprint that had the Tales of Suspense stories in them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I would go to the library and I would check out Origins of Marvel Comics, Sons of Origins of Marvel Comics, bring on the bad guys, and and I'm sure at every library, the librarians could tell there were serial checkout kids, like kids that would check it out and then check it back in and just like so and a lot of people watching right now, when I started reading, it was before the internet, so you had to do your own sleuthing, right? You had to grab the Overstreet guide, and you look at the Overstreet guide and you try to make heads or tails of what happened. Like why is where's Captain America 1 through 99? I don't understand what's going on here, right? All the things like that, like tales to astonish, like why does Hulk start with 100, that type of stuff. So
why does Giant X-Men 1 come after 94?
exactly right, exactly. And then the other thing that my brother and I, we were like we couldn't figure it out. We're like, so because this was the era of like Frank Miller. Right. Okay, so there's this Daredevil who's like half blue and half red, and then there's this other Daredevil with a red costume. What's going on? Like how we did, so there's all kinds of things you had to fill in the blanks yourself, and sometimes you got it wrong, right? And good luck pronouncing Sienkiewicz, and things like that, right? Because it's before YouTube and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely. In my DNA is the bedrock is probably Jack Kirby's Marvel book, the Silver Age Marvel, and some of them are on his age. And then on top of that is the indie comics, the great indie comics of the 80s, Dreadstars, Zot, ElfQuest, Cerebus,
Turtles.
What's that?
Turtles.
Yeah, there was some turtles. There's some turtles in there. My brother was more of the turtles guy, so I read them, but I didn't have them. And then like American Flag. So some and Love and Rockets. So that's like the second layer of my DNA. And then later it was like Mobius and some of the French and Belgium comics.
Being that you're a Marvel fan in good standing of the golden age of Marvel comics, I'm going to ask you the question.
Yeah,
I don't normally ask this question of anyone because it's quite a contentious one. Kirby or Lee?
Kirby.
Every time.
Yeah. So what? Here's what I believe from everything that I've observed and everything I've gleaned.
Go for it.
Jack Kirby was 60% of that relationship, to the extent that obviously he had control over the visuals. And when Stan Lee would dispatch him, when they would plot or he'd give him the outline, it was very bare bones. And so a lot of the storytelling and a lot of the curveballs and the plot twists and so forth was Jack basically storyboarding it, and he would write some blurbs in the columns in the gutters and so forth. And then he would introduce characters that like the Silver Surfer, like Stan Lee did not tell him to make this, So that's why I'd say Jack Kirby is the majority of that relationship. Now, I recognize that Stan had a turn of phrase. He had a pizzazz. He put sizzle on the steak. So Jack Kirby and Stan Lee together were better than either of them necessarily alone. However, because of the business practices, and also because of when they separated, Stan did some good work, but then Jack went on to do the New Gods, the Demon, Commandy, the Captain Victory and his Galactic Rangers, his crazy madcap runs on Black Panther and Captain America and so forth, and the Eternals, right, and Silver Star. So when I look at it in terms of the creative output and the imagination, without Jack Kirby, Stan Lee would probably be a footnote. Without Stan Lee, Jack Kirby would have still been Jack Kirby. But there was salesmanship and there was a pizzazz that Lee added.
It's funny when we talk about Jack Kirby because yes, I absolutely wholeheartedly agree. Classic Lee and Kirby Fantastic Four is my jam. But his stuff after that, New Gods, for example, Demon, that didn't go down very well historically until well after the event. And everyone then came back and said, and I get what you're saying about Lee being the pizzazz guy, but remember Lee and Ditko on Spider-Man. So
Yeah.
Again, same principle. How much was Ditko? How much was? You know what? I guess we'll never know.
We'll never know.
because we'll never know. But I guarantee, I'm with you on this. I think Jack Kirby, it was a force of nature in comic books. He's one of those people who would comic books needed.
Mm-hmm.
Comic books needed Neil Adams. Comic
Yeah.
books needed Stan Lee. So these are the names that we bandy around now in commonplace. And you know what? We take them for granted. We shouldn't. We should actually tip our hat, which I think your book Jupiter does that very well. It tips its hat and says, yeah, this is what I've been brought up. This is what I love. This is from that point of view. You mentioned how indie comics are better than mainstream comics. Now's the time of the indie comic. I know I suppose it came to light in the 80s and they kind of had the splurge of Image back in the 90s. But now it's creator owned. Thanks to Indiegogo, Kickstarter, all the crowdfunders.
The other thing is here's my view is that the vehicle of crowdfunding, the platform of crowdfunding is the way station that the American market is taking to the European model. And what I mean by that is the European model is you're someone like Mobius and you're coming out with a graphic novel or an OGN. You're coming out with one or two of those a year. They're beautiful, they're hardcover, they're deluxe and so forth, right? So that's what the comic book market looks like in France. In America, because we had the monthly spinner rack and so forth, the publishers, they're geared into that mentality and they keep trying to make that work. So with crowdfunding, you have people like Carl Kessel and so forth, and Jim Starlin, who are saying, you know what, I'm going to crowdfund a comic book. It's going to be $25-$30, but I'm going to lavish as much love and attention on it as I can. So when you get it, it's practically an OGN, right? In terms of page count, maybe it might be soft cover, stitched. But the point is, I think that crowdfunding is moving us towards that European model. And pardon me, and it's slowly happening, right? And at some point, the retailers are going to have to figure this out, and they're going to have to say, you know what, there's a place for manga, there's a place for what Marvel and DC are doing, but I need to start offering some of these more prestige deluxe comic book offerings from the crowdfunders. And even as a reader, I don't expect Stephen King to write 12 novels a year, right? I am perfectly fine waiting a year or two, or a year or 6 months or 9 months or whatever for the next offering. But I know it's going to be well crafted and it's going to have all kinds of attention lavished on it. So if the readers had told Marvel and DC move to a European model, they would have said, no, we can't. That's not our business model. We give you a bunch of floppies and it turns into an incoherent trade and you got to wait till it's an omnibus. No, I don't want that. I don't want decompressed storytelling. I want you to give me an intact story that's 60 to 100 pages, and I'll buy 2 of those from you every year. I'll buy 2 from you every year. I'll buy 2 from you every year, right? So Marvel and DC would not go to that of their own accord, but by having the crowdfunding option, the market is moving to that approach.
I think I hear this argument a lot because I like floppies. I'm an old school guy. I like my 22 pages. Yeah, I like it. I still go to the local comic book shop on a Wednesday and I buy the books. And then people say, well, they should publish them as a graphic novel, as you're mentioning. My issue with that would be the higher ups, the money makers, will turn around and say, instead of having 100 pages and having your complete story, why don't we do 100 pages and then to be continued? And then all you're doing is it's the same thing, but just on more pages. Right. It doesn't, so I think there has to be a level. If you go into that kind of prestige format where you get more pages for your book, then you need to have that closure element. It can't just be
satisfaction.
It can't just be extended unilaterally, which, as you mentioned earlier, the floppies are, with all the crazy events that go nowhere.
Right.
Nowhere.
Well, and think about like Tintin, right? Where there's a status quo, and the status quo allows you to dive into an adventure and it's a good, they were pretty big.
Uh-huh.
And then at the end, they can tell a satisfying story, but there's nothing that's going to, they're not going to kill Tintin. They're not going to have the dog take over Tintin's job, and they're not going to do things like that, right?
No, yeah. So I think that creates its own challenges, though, doesn't it?
To some extent, yep.
Yeah, if you're writing a Batman book, for example, you know full well you're not going to kill Batman. So, right, how can we give that sense of, oh my God, something's going to happen?
Jeopardy.
Yeah, without it actually happening, and I think that's a trick in itself. But
absolutely.
Enough about Batman. Who cares about all pointy ears? All right, this is your Indiegogo.
Yeah,
we looked at the trailer already. It's in, because I'm in the UK. It's in pounds, but you can go there. It's $3,542 $500. I'm going to say $500 seems like a low amount to ask for, Jason.
So I'm a fan of I want to have fun. I don't want any stress. And this is my first crowdfund. So in my mind, I said, you know what? I'm going to set it at $500. And if the worst happens, I'll just print it high quality digital and be done. Right. But I obviously I want the upward bound to be as great as I can make it. And would you mind just for a moment letting me go full screen again?
I was, yeah, can do that for you.
So as you mentioned, the initial campaign goal was $500 because I wanted to have fun, and if I'm having fun, you're going to have fun, and so forth. I didn't want to be stressed out, so I do have a stretch goal. So this is the $5,000 stretch goal, and we talked about my love of Jack Kirby. This is the stretch goal is a Captain Kleinbottle fan club membership card, and this is like something that would exist in the world of Jupiter, right? And this is Captain Kleinbottle. He's like an astronaut, Jack Kirby style character, and in true 1970s comic book fashion, it's sponsored by a pie company. And then you'll see that the years on the membership card run backwards in time, because he's a time traveler, right? So this is the $5,000 stretch goal. If we can get the campaign to $5,000, every backer is going to get this at no additional cost. I have manufactured these. I've got a whole box of them here. I've manufactured these. I want to get to 5,000. I want to get to 5,000 so everybody can have it. And on the back, there's a diagram of a rocket ship in my website and so forth. But this is the stretch goal. So my funding goal was 500, but I want to get to at least 5,000. I'm already over 100 backers, and for an unknown creator, I feel pretty good about that, right? But certainly, the more the merrier. The more
definitely.
The merrier.
I mean, for me, that's a huge amount. As you say, a first-time creator, you've still got over a week left at the time of recording.
Yep.
You know, you're absolutely storming it.
Thank you.
And that I think that just goes to show that you've tapped into something. You've tapped into something real, something that people are going to get a kick out of. Whether it be the nostalgia buff who likes the Kirby, or whether it's the sci-fi nerd that likes the Flash Gordon elements.
Yep.
You know, you've tapped into something there that's absolutely piqued everyone's interest.
It's a fun mix between modern. I think it's modern artwork and so forth, like the fine lines and the elaborate color palette and the textures and so forth, but then also that homage to the Silver Age. I think it's a fun book.
You got time for a couple more questions?
Also, I'm going to mention in this, I want to mention that. So one of the issues with Marvel and DC is the variant covers, right? So if you have OCD, you need to find a job or find a career where you can make your OCD work for you, right? So OCD can be a gift. However, do not be victimized by your OCD. Do not let Marvel and DC force you into buying a comic book twice or 3 times or 4 times just to get the variant covers. So if you like variant covers, I will give you a variant cover, but you only have to buy the book one time. And you get the 2 covers. Okay, I wanted to make sure everybody saw that.
No, that's cool. My view on the variant cover is you buy the one you like, and that's it.
I agree.
That's it. If I see a variant, I'll give you a prime example. My comic book store, before he passed away, they had it on record that if a Tim Sale cover came in, I'm getting the Tim Sale cover. I don't care what book it is.
Nice.
I'm a huge Tim Sale fan.
Nice.
And that's what he does. Ash, the guy at My Local Forbidden Planet, sees Tim Sale. Yep, Johnny. That's how it works.
Perfect.
They've got it. So they know. So I always buy the one I like. It's pretty much. Writer, artist, creator, put the staples in the book, all that sort of thing. Which job do you find the hardest? Which do you find easiest? Are you more of the
Mhm.
writer, or are you more the artist, or do you kind of just throw everything on a page and hope it all works out?
The penciling, the draftsmanship, that's the hardest part, because that's where you've got the blank page and and your second. I'll do thumbnails, right? But the blank page at the penciling level, that's the hardest, because that's where you're locking yourself into all these. You're making these decisions, and you're locking yourself into them, right? And as you progress along the timeline, you're sinking more time into what you set out as the penciler, right? So if you make a mistake as the penciler, meaning that the page doesn't flow, if the angles don't tell the story right, you are compounding that error when you get to the inking and the coloring and so forth. So that's the penciling is the part that's the hardest, because I'm incessantly second guessing myself. And I'll do a pass on. I'll do the breakdowns and the thumbnails, and I'll get it in there, and then I'll go to the next page. I'll let it sit. I won't look at it for as many days as possible, and then I'll go back to it and be, what was I thinking? What was I thinking? And then I'll be like, I did a Liefeld. I did a Rob Liefeld. I can't believe I did this. I got to erase all that, right? So you do these things where you're like, I can't believe I let myself. Why did I think that looked accurate? Why did I think that looked anatomically correct? I got to fix that, right? So that's the part that's the hardest. And then once you get through that, then I'm able to get into a state of flow. And then even the writing's pretty easy, because you know that there's that saying. There's a saying that I've seen some writers put on like coffee mugs and stuff like that. It is write fearlessly, edit mercilessly, or something like that.
Okay.
So the idea is, when you're writing, just get it out, right? And then when you're editing, then be ruthless and so forth. Yeah.
I'm laughing. I don't mean to laugh, Jason. I'm really sorry, but I like to doodle, just like every comic book fan does,
sure.
right? And I'm exactly the same. I'll draw something as I'm doodling, and then I'll put it to one side, and I'll come back to it, and I'll start inking it. Then I'll do some more inks, and by the time I finish, I've colored the whole thing in black. I'm like, what have I done? And then my wife will say something ridiculous. So I pick up a pad. She goes, "Oh, draw something," as if you just go, "Yeah, all right, there you go."
Yeah.
Oh, so I'm laughing because it sounds exactly like me, absolutely like me. So
Perfect.
I'm glad it's not just me that struggles with the white page.
Yep, absolutely.
Jason, it's been an absolute blast having you on the show. It's this time's flown over. How did it go? It went so quick.
Yeah, I've got. I mean, if you've got another 5 minutes, we could scroll through the tiers. Otherwise, I mean,
for you, Jason, I will give you another 5 minutes. Let me bring up the bring up the page, as it were, and then we can go through there. I did notice that you are shipping worldwide into certain countries, so that's quite impressive.
Yeah.
I will say, for international fans like myself, sometimes that's an off-putter when you're backing a crowdfunder, because you can drop the $10 on a comic book, of course you can, but then it costs you $25 to get it shipped out. It then becomes a little bit cost prohibitive. So.
I envision that at some point there's going to be enough crowdfunders that we're going to have some sort of distribution system for people in Australia, Canada, and in the United Kingdom. Because believe me, I did postal tests in January.
Mm-hmm.
So some of them I put the comic book just in a 12x9 flat, right?
Right.
And I would try to mail it. And other times I put it in a Gemini mailer. It didn't matter. It is absolutely, and it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy, the cost to do postage. And at some point, someone's gonna have to figure out, hey, we're gonna find a trusted individual in Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia, and we're gonna send the books to them with the forwarding addresses, and they're gonna take care of mailing it locally, right? It's gotta happen. It's gotta happen.
Yeah. Right, tiers. So Speedball tier, $10 gets you
the comic book, 40 pages plus the non-prize.
There you go. Ships worldwide.
So the Canadian Speedbolt, that's if you want me to mail it just in the cheapest way possible, and it's not going to be padded and stuff like that. I had some people in Canada say, "Hey, listen, the shipping's too expensive," so I set a separate tier. And the way Indiegogo works is that once someone buys a tier, you can't edit it. So I couldn't go in there and fix the postage on the regular one. So I had to create a tier just for Canada. But again, they were concerned, but nobody's. I made 10 available, but no one's bought any yet.
Yeah, I'm so concerned that I'm not going to buy it. Okay, cool. Whatever. Skybolt, ships worldwide.
That's the comic book. That's the non-prize, and then it's a postcard portfolio. The postcard portfolio is 2 each of 7 paintings that I did in the style of Jack Kirby. So, and there's a video at the bottom. You know, you can the viewers can watch it on their own time, but it kind of shows you what the postcards look like. You get 2 each.
Excellent. The Jovian tier for $30.
That's everything in the earlier tiers plus a challenge coin. So I got a. It looks gold. It's metal, but it's a little commemorative challenge coin for the campaign.
Yeah, cool. Excellent. See that. Cool. 32.
So I had a number of people at hospitals or schools and daycares reach out to me and say, "Hey, we know your book is all ages. I mean, it's not a kid's book, but there's no gore in it. There's no sex or nudity. They're like, hey, we want to be able to buy some and give them to kids. So I made that tier right there. So that's a special little tier if you want to buy them and give them away.
The retailer tier.
Yep. So for
US only on this one.
Yeah, so that one's you get 8 copies, half off, and then I subsidize the shipping. If somebody out there is in England or Ireland and you want me to set up a special retailer tier for you, let me know. I'll figure out what I need to do for the postage and I'll add it. I didn't want to be presumptuous. So that's that retailer tier. There's been 5 comic book shops that have taken me up on the offer, which I'm thrilled by. Down below, the next one is an Australian retail tier. And I think they haven't claimed that yet. They will. They promised me they will.
They will.
Yep. And then there's a Canada retail. So one retailer in Canada has picked up on that. So that's available too.
Cool. Double Crown.
Yeah, Double Jovian is basically the Jovian tier, but 2 of everything.
Cool. Excellent. There's your commissions.
So if you've got a character that you want me to draw, do a full color illustration in my Jack Kirby mode. If you want me to do an homage Kirby drawing, there's a tier for there, and I'm fine if somebody uses that for a variant cover or a pinup. So hit me up with that tier and let me know what your character is, and I can do that. So I've had 3 different indie crowdfunder artists approach me and say, hey, I've got my book coming out. I want you to do my character in that Jack Kirby style you do. And I'm going to be thrilled to do it.
Excellent. You know what? It sounds like you've covered all your bases there. Absolutely. There you go. Cool. Yep. Well done. If you are interested in the project, be quick because you've only got 8 days. If you haven't, though, because it's Indiegogo, you can always add it on afterwards. There is the link.
Thank you.
So basically, Indiegogo and Kickstarter are terrible for the link. So if you just go to Indiegogo.com, type in Jupiter issue 1, you'll find it. It's not. You know how a search engine works, right? Right?
Yep, exactly. And if you go to Twitter, I'm at Jason_Sandberg. I've got a pinned tweet, so you can get the
right
link.
there.
That's right there, right there.
Yeah. It's not my first rodeo. Excellent. Before you go, you do have you have a website, I believe. So let's have a quick look at that as well. Just before, and this is dead simple. Jason Sandberg Press.
Just jasonsandberg.com.
Oh, is it? Sorry, I apologize.
No problem.
I got it wrong. Here we go. There it is. jasonsandberg.com, and all the links to, first off, the Indiegogo goes there, then the various trailers which we've seen as part of the video montage. There's the house with the clock, the hourglass that I love so much, the Flash Gordon inspired element there, the prisoner and the crazy stuff from that one, Video Game Man, they're all in there. So you get a chance to have a look at that. Oh, by Jason Dinosaur. Excellent. So check that out for information and more videos, I assume, down the line.
Absolutely.
Yeah, excellent. Cool.
So, Johnny, have a wonderful weekend. And thank you who's watching. You all have a wonderful weekend. And please check out Jupiter. And thank you for your time.
Jason, you've been an absolute star. Thank you so much for spending the time. I really do appreciate it. Of course, do not cite me when your boss says, "Why did you knock off early?" Thank you. All right, that's it for another episode. Don't forget to check out the UCPN for all your favorite shows, including, you saw the advert earlier, Crisis in the Toyverse. And of course, if you like Marvel, you've got No Price Podcast, and for DC, you've got the Definitive Crusade. And if, like Jason and I, you like your comics of a certain vintage, don't forget to check out the Old Timers Comic Book Show, which will be doing the granddaddy of them all. He's 85, a Superman special very, very soon. There you go. Cool. Jason, thank you again. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Your book looks great. I'm sure you'll do fantastic. Absolutely. Thanks. And as for everyone else, I've been your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes. And as always, adios.
Visit undercovercapes.com for the latest and greatest podcasts via the Undercover Capes Podcast Network. Also visit our parent company website, comiccrusaders.com, all about comic pop culture.